Everybody, and welcome to Behind That Suits, a critical look. And this is where we talk about real shit. And like we said in the last Headspace, we're going to be moving off of the real shit from the music podcast and keep it a little more separate. And so today we're going to be talking about something that is a little close to home. Chris, why don't you tell us what it is?
Well, over the course of the last week, we here in Montreal, Quebec, had a little flood that hit us up in the West Island, up in Pierrefonds.
It was also all around, basically between Montreal and on the Ontario border.
That too.
Tons of flooding. Really, like, you can see videos of people paddle boating around the city. A national state of emergency was declared. Yeah. You should see pictures of some shit popping up here. I apologize if I stole anyone's shit. It was just really kind of weird, right? And it was like up the street from my mom's house. What was real crazy is on her street, like, it said it was like flooded on the news and whatnot, but She was all the way up the street and was dry. And I was like, huh, look at that. She had no idea there was a flood happening.
How far is it
It's
from?
like 5 blocks from like the water, right? But they're kind of like longish, I'd say.
Okay.
About a kilometer at most from the water she is, less. I had no idea a flood was even happening, and it was kind of fun. I'm like, Mommy, do you watch the news? Like, you're in Pierrefonds. What the, you know? Anyway, so she was all fine, but when you look at it, basically the current situation is the crisis is over, and a lot of houses are fucked, and a lot of people are kind of fucked, and there's a bunch of information sessions. So in case you were watching this and you're affected by it, I'm going to link below to what the information available, to what you can do in Quebec to deal with this.
Well, actually, that's kind of weird because according to an article I read, there's not much you can do in Montreal. Apparently, when you bring sandbags, they decide to arrest you.
Okay. We're going to talk about that, actually. So we'll start off with Sandbag Man. What happened was here, because I looked into the story a little bit further, is he came and he wanted to protect his buddy's house. But the problem is if he protected his buddy's house and he put the sandbags in this particular location, what would happen is the water would trickle down in a way that would fuck up city infrastructure, like power. I don't remember.
It was the train tracks.
The train tracks. So if we really think about this from a pragmatic, the city's point of view, one of those is a house, it costs this much. The other is redoing the fucking train tracks and shit, right? So the cops were like, look, you can't do this. If you come back, man, we're going to be forced to arrest you. This is a problem. Then he came back, and on like his 4th trip, they arrested him. When you really put it into context, it's like he knew what was going to come. I understand that somebody tried to put the point of mob mentality and he's freaking out and whatever when I discussed this on Facebook. But when you really consider it, he had the opportunity to help in other ways, and he wanted to protect his friend's house, and it's super noble. But when the cops are like, look, you can't do that. If you come back, we're going to arrest you, and they let you off the hook 3 times. It's not even like they're being assholes at that point.
No, they're just doing their job. Fine, I'll give you that.
But there is shit to talk about. So basically all the flooding happens, and Mr. Corderre is like, nah. Mr. Corderre being our mayor, Denis Corderre. There's a picture of him. So this guy is all like, basically the situation's under control. We have enough sandbags. Everything's good, and kind of held off a bit.
But this is because it's happened before.
Right, and it's kind of like he basically told everyone to hold off for a minute, and the army wasn't called in right away. I don't have all the specifics here, but it's really not the crux of what I want to talk about is what happened there. I don't care when the army got called in. I understand that it might have been done wrong, but I think a lot of things about how this was handled was done wrong, and Mr. Corderre is the subject of a couple of them. This idea was actually brought on by Damon Kala, who is co-hosting Headspace with us. So credits to her for coming up with this dope-ass idea. But her boyfriend was down there shoveling sandbags into it, right, and saw that Denis Corderre had shown up and had his pictures taken and shook hands and kind of interrupted the flow of things to kind of have a publicity stunt happen. And then later on that week on Friday, he kind of interrupted the flow of things again, took all these blue-collar workers to give them a pizza appreciation.
Like photos, right?
No, it was a pizza appreciation lunch. Where at 11,
yeah.
So it was at like 11:15 in the morning. They all had to be at PCHS High School, which whatever. It's in fucking Pierrefonds, Montreal. And they had to show up there and interrupt their work and go do this. And these are people dealing with the fucking flood crisis immediately. So then Denis Corderre shows up late, gives them pizza, takes pictures, and bounces. Now what we've seen is he's all over this trying to have his picture taken like I'm the hero mayor. But then it's kind of weird, right? How the hell is this helping?
It's not.
Like Trudeau and Couillard, Prime Minister of Canada, Premier of Quebec.
They went too, and all I've seen from them is just photos. I didn't really see much of them doing anything either.
So what Damon was really pissed about is how these PR moves kind of interrupt the flow of helping things. And she had a really valid point. It's like politicians aren't helping by showing up at the scene for morale.
Hold on. But with that, how can you justify the guy who got arrested for coming back to help?
Well, I can justify it because he was trying to fuck shit up and it would have cost all of us more money.
Okay.
And if we all even gave $1, it would fix the house quicker than if we all gave $1 would not fix the train tracks.
Fair.
So you have to really think about that from a big picture kind of point of view. It's real shitty that his house got fucked up, but the train tracks getting fucked up is a lot worse, right?
Well, the end outcome actually with the train tracks fucking up is a bigger consequence.
And
so yes.
the cost of dealing with this flood is going to likely come back to us in some way or another. And let's say mitigating costs now is probably a really wise choice of the city.
Okay.
So I'm okay with that. But so let's say Corderre shows up and does some PR stuff. But I started looking into this a little bit. And I think it's CBC or CBS has done a lot of great reporting and coverage of it. And one of the things that was fascinating that I found out is 3 or 4 days before the flood started, city officials had issued an order to have a bunch of sandbags in the ballpark of something like 16,000 sandbags cut up because they were taking up too much space in a warehouse. Knowing that flood season was still kind of risky.
Kind of like around the corner.
Like, it was still like they needed this shit for at least another month and something could happen. Now, I saw one report of this. As far as these bags go, this was confirmed as happened by a few people who remained anonymous for obvious reasons. The mayor of Pierrefonds had no fucking idea this was happened, apparently, and it was a big clusterfuck. But the timing is ridiculous, eh? So they cut up all the shit the flood happens. Now, something that was said that I can't confirm is true is apparently, and it would be awesome if somebody out there can fucking confirm this, the amount of sandbags they put up in Pierrefonds to protect against the flooding situation this year, like the default amount that's there, was less and shallower than it was in previous years. So it'd be really cool to get some kind of confirmation on that.
Well, okay, so what you're basically saying is that they knew that flood season's around the corner, and now... Oh, well, we suddenly have less than last year.
Well, let's look at it a little differently.
Unprepared for it.
So the bureaucrats, the guys who sit in offices all day and make decisions in government, they proceeded to be like, okay, we need space in this warehouse for whatever reason. This is a solution. There's not going to be a flood. Let's be, whatever. But there was almost flooding, if I'm not mistaken, in Rigaud a couple of weekends before, and we'd already seen signs of flooding.
Right.
They said, fuck it, there's not going to be a flood. No harm, no foul. It's going to be good. Every year we keep the bags here. Every year there's no flood. That was the mentality, right? It was just a clerical fucking oversight on the city's end, a very stupid one. And there should be people held accountable for that kind of stupid decision. Because let's be real, when like 3 or 4 days later, that much flooding has happened. Now let's talk about the damages a bit. Okay, so sorry, before we cut on to the damages, I just wanted to establish that there's clear negligence on behalf of the city ahead of time. And let's talk about those sandbags that Corderre turned away for a second, right? Sorry if I'm talking a lot. I researched this a little bit.
No, it's totally cool. I just wanted to make a little, I guess that's a little funny to me. It's just funny how... They're like, okay, well, there hasn't been a flood. We're going to take away the sandbags. And then, it's kind of like how everything happens,
not really
right?
Funny, right?
Well, it's not funny, but it's just how everything happens. You always make like a decision and then some shit happens.
So part of why I think, just to pivot in a little tangent, part of why I want to bring this forward with all of this stuff that we're talking about is it's not entirely global warming and climate change that caused this situation. It was actually a little bit of negligence on our end that caused this situation. And I want to go a little bit more into that negligence.
Okay, cool.
So Corderre was saying right at the beginning, everything's good. We got all the sandbags we need. I remember hearing that. Unfortunately...
Seems stable enough.
Right. But what that really meant is they had a lot of sandbags that were bags and a giant fucking pile of sand and had a bunch of people coming in. And
So the sand wasn't pre-bagged.
Right. So the way that was represented by Mr. Corderre and how the situation was totally under control is a fucking misrepresentation. And ultimately, had this been prepared for and handled effectively, maybe some of the consequences would have happened. I was watching just some of the areas, right? It doesn't really matter the street name so much, but there's certain areas that were commercial, just stores and strip malls. Like I used to live out there, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like I can remember driving past those when I was younger, going to that grocery store.
Well, no,
or shit
I also
like that.
read articles. Family businesses were shut down.
So yeah, that's part of where I was going with it.
Especially with the family businesses, there's a lot of fear and a lot of stress going on with the insurance and if they're covered or not. And my question is, what is the insurance going to do about this?
It's okay. So let's say the insurance does say, fine, we'll give you all the money. And we're going to repair your shit. I saw this one place. It was a mechanic shop.
Yes.
And the guy was saying how, like, look, even in a best case scenario, they're up and running again in 6 months at this rate.
Well, he also had to cut staff.
That's what he's saying. So he had to lay off his whole staff for the next 6 months because, so not all these employees are about to lose their jobs. And I think there's something like 1,700 homes that were displaced. And let's be real.
Well, listen, I saw when I was reading some of the articles, there was some very vivid pictures of this, and like these houses are like people are on the not people are on their roofs, but like if you could imagine what's happening at the time in the
for real, like when it was hitting proper, we're talking like waist deep in the middle of the fucking like
your basement's destroyed. Your basement is good.
What's real interesting is how these houses are fucking completely destroyed. Now, the next little bit is slightly speculative and more of just a general problem I was looking into and didn't have a lot more time to research. But apparently, when these houses were sold to people, it was never really made abundantly clear that Pierrefonds was a swamp once upon a time.
Hold on.
And is particularly susceptible to flooding, and something like a flash flood like this is actually possible and it could ruin your house.
Question, is it that it wasn't made abundantly clear, or is it because people don't give a shit? Because there's a spot on the South Shore from where I'm from. It's called Zistrand, and it's an outdoor mall section. Anyway, there's this, again, swampland, and there's a bunch of, like, rich $1 million houses there. Like, our local hockey team lives around that area, so you can imagine the houses are very expensive.
Right.
And they expected to say that in about 10 years, this whole swamp is just going to come and level all these houses.
Which is amazing. We're on
like,
the same
you're
page.
well aware. I've been, like, okay, don't get me wrong. I've been in these houses. I used to work and bring wood to these places. And to be real, these are nice houses, dude.
I think it's just that when these houses were built, the consequences of what would happen in terms of climate change is
neglected.
So climate change is being denied at this time. Now, I want to bring climate change into it a little bit because the one thing that's been really clear is more and more storms and shit are happening. And if you look, I saw there was a video that was just describing how if you look at the amount of flooding in Quebec over the last while, it's just more and more frequent.
Well, it's not even that. Did you notice? Okay, the last 3 days have been pouring rain, and then today was hot as fuck.
No, that's just Montreal all the time. Let's be real. We have a reputation.
Okay, fine.
Fine. What I'm saying is that across the world, there's a higher likelihood of natural disasters. Now, let's say these houses were all built 15, 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
Structure's garbage.
40 years ago. Do you really think that anyone was necessarily informed properly that when the houses were built that this is the case?
Because back then, those many years ago, maybe we weren't.
And it was probably just a lot of shit. And so I don't actually know when these houses were built. I apologize if my dates are fucking wrong. But
still,
the
even
issue
that
is that the city could have avoided this from happening by putting proper zoning regulations in place to ensure that houses weren't built in shitty places in the thing. So rather than just expanding like we do to fill up every fucking available place in Montreal, perhaps there should not have been houses built in this swamp as you were describing.
I mean, that's where I get confused because, not confused, just I question the mentality of certain decisions because I'm like, if you know that this is a swampland and
But that's the thing is, how many people know Pierrefonds a swamp when they buy that house right now?
Well, maybe not you, but the people who are, I'm pretty sure, what is it?
What about somebody like my mom who just moved into a triplex?
What do you call the people who sell the houses?
The
real estate agents. I'm pretty sure they're well aware of the environment.
I don't actually know that it's necessarily mandatory to make everyone aware of it. I don't actually know the laws. If somebody out there can clarify,
maybe not. It's maybe not like, hey, all right, hold it. Do you like this place? The environment's great. The cement is solid. But if you ask a question, I should know this information.
Yeah, but why would I think to go? Is Pierrefonds built on a swamp? Like that shit. Maybe it's not legal or forced that they have to disclose something like that. Maybe
Okay.
the agencies don't even know. Maybe this happened so long ago it was just kind of
Well,
forgotten.
no, fuck, no. If there was this was reoccurring. Maybe not very frequent, but it happened before. It's a question that's not a bad question to ask, especially if we're a place that's surrounded by water.
One of the things that I think is a really funny question to ask is why people act like this is the first fucking flood in Montreal. One of my mom's favorite stories to tell me.
It's like the snowstorms.
The ice storm at night.
Every time there's snow, everybody's like, "Oh my god, it's the first sign of snow."
Well, no, yeah, I know what you mean, but what I mean is people act like, from a city perspective, this is the first big old flood, that trash shit that ever happened, right? But
when was the last flood?
That's what I was saying. When my mom was pregnant with me back in 1987, she really enjoys telling me stories about how the big old flood happened while I was in her belly.
Okay, so hold on.
But what I'm saying is 30 years means that it doesn't really matter if that was. So 30 years goes by. That means that the city should have records of this happening and always have a contingency plan ready to go.
Completely agree with that. The city itself, I was thinking it on a different level, like people, like civilians themselves. I would understand that. Like 30 years ago, like you said, you weren't even born. So now it's our generation or our time to see a flood.
It's not my job as a citizen of Montreal to prepare the city for a flood in case it happens, knowing we're on a fucking island.
Unless you're severely fucking paranoid.
Well, no, but in general, what I mean, even then, it just kind of happened. From what I saw, there were reports saying that in like the course of 6 hours, it went from like fucking dry to my basement's flooded and I'm fucked. And like the whole situation was ridiculous, man. Yeah, kind of not really, because the water's disgusting.
Yeah. Oh, of course, because a couple months ago they dropped all the shit in the water.
Oh my god, that's fucking funny. I remember that. Apparently, that's a whole other side topic. I don't want to jump into that. Look, all I'm saying is that there are things that can be done about this. I know that we kind of just ranted a bit, but it's really a fucking funny time when our politicians are willing to take pictures of everyone. But why is nobody asking questions like what regulations are going to be put into effect to ensure that this does not happen again?
Well,
right?
Let me ask you a question. What do you think should happen?
For one thing, I don't think they should cut up the sandbags anymore.
Well, that's a great idea.
Or at least,
let's not do that.
I think it was mid-June is the end of flood season. Wait till the end of fucking flood season. Now, if it happens in July, okay. Well, you know what? Fuck it. It's Montreal. We're an island. Who knows? Maybe you should just always have shit ready for that.
You should.
Maybe, instead of trying to look cool and be like Montreal's prepared, accept help immediately when shit looks fucked up. Because the longer shit happens like this, the situation gets worse. And frankly, fuck that guy with his sandbags trying to save the house. You were an asshole trying to make shit worse. I don't care if you got arrested and what you feel about the police or shit, but that dude was not helping the situation. And on that note, I feel really shitty that I could not go down and help. I could have gone and helped. I could have not made a video, and I chose not to. And I actually feel guilt and remorse over that. So I want to apologize to the people who are affected by this, that I didn't do anything more than, I guess, make this video, which doesn't really cut it. And I recognize that. And then the next time something like this really does happen, I will be there, because that probably means a fuck ton more. And I won't even film it. Be there, camera off and shit. So that's what I'm going to say. But I want to see people ask the right questions to, like, make Mr. Corderre be a little accountable for allowing this to happen under his watch.
Okay.
He's on such a push for tourism for the big old anniversary of Montreal this year. It's like, dude, how do you allow this to happen? You're so worried about lights?
Well, I guess priorities are changing. I mean, during everything that's going on right now in Montreal and everything that's going on around in the world, priorities are changing.
Yeah, but how are the priorities make lights on a bridge? And
look, I didn't say they're changing for the best.
Giant robe marionettes are walking around Montreal. Did you know about the giant marionettes? I don't know. My girlfriend's fucking into them. Basically, like, they're like 6 people behind a giant marionette operating it, and they walk like, Wait.
Is that just because our culture and the way that Montrealers do things is very artistic? Maybe
no, it's because the mayor, in my opinion, this is Holden's opinion. Fuck, if you don't agree, I don't care.
Not many people do.
I believe that the mayor is absolutely pushing tourism in this city, and all he cares about is tourism. Making revenue off of tourism, which is fantastic if you're a tourist or if you're somebody who's new to the city, because everything looks amazing. But I can tell you that the bike paths on the way to work are fucking terrible, which means the place I'm supposed to bike on the road is actually the most dangerous. And you look at shit like that, and you're like, but man, you could have taken some of those millions for the lights on the bridge, maybe,
And
not worried
right.
as much about tourism, and made sure that when those tourists come in and go visit their buddy in the hood or something, that their car doesn't fucking break. Look at shit like that. I want to see prioritization done in a way where it's a little bit about rebuilding our infrastructure in our city to avoid shit like this happening again. I guess I'm rambling now. I don't have a lot more to say on this. This is kind of a different styled show. Just bitch a bit and then fucking cut it, I guess.
That's pretty much what it is. That was the topic of the discussion for this week. This was our critical analysis on it.
And you're probably like, holy shit, it's not 2 hours long. Fuck, yeah, let's click on this one.
But you know what? Let us know what you guys think. For the first show like this, let us know what you guys think. Hit us up in the comments. We got Twitter, we got Instagram, we got Facebook, we got all this shit. Just leave the comments below. And this is HSR. I'm Chris Chrome.
And holla at us on shit. Anyway, peace out.
Fuck it.